Well, it's been a week since my last video, and I kind of wanted to do an update. This week's been very busy. There are a lot of topics, and I'm probably not going to cover them all in this video. I may do one more video for Sunday, but today I just wanted to cover a couple of them. Let's see, maybe I'll just cover two of them. And the first one I'm just going to do a quick comment on. It's the suicide of Chester Bennington and of Lincoln Park. And I've lost a lot of my favorite artists this year, last year, the year before. It's amazing to me. As a Christian, as a Catholic, we believe that suicide is murder. Any form of destroying life is a form of murder. So this is why our stance on abortion is so stiff. Our stance on suicide, our stance on killing other people. There are times when we believe that homicide is justifiable, but only in defense of yourself and defense of the innocent and the weak. But to me, suicide is something horrible. First of all, I believe that your spirit does not belong to you. It comes from God. It is in the image of God, and it resides within the temple of your body, as the Bible talks about. So to do anything to harm your body is basically a sin against your spirit. And it saddens me when many of my favorite artists do things like that. They commit suicide or they overdose on drugs because, in a way, suicide is very selfish. You're taking, first of all, the Spirit of God as your own, and your spirit doesn't belong to you. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, so you believe, I believe that atheism is part of the reason why people are driven to commit suicide, because it gives them such a dire outlook on life. They don't believe in anything spiritual, so their perspective of life is, it's here, and once you die, that's it. And that's a very dark way of looking at things. And when you die, when you are dying, if you're dying slowly, it makes you very depressed, because that is a depressing outlook in life. To think that you are all alone in the world, you're going to die alone, and it's going to end is very sad and depressing. I prefer the Christian outlook. And, to me, when I was younger, I wasn't a strong Christian. I believed in it, but not so much. I mean, I would go to the church, but not so much. And there were times when I would struggle in my youth, in my teen years. I actually fell away from the Catholic Church and from Christianity. And I got into a lot of trouble. There were times when I was actually suicidal. So I had feelings because I would hit rock bottom during those times where I would want to commit suicide. There were actually 2 times in my life that I can remember where I actually contemplated suicide. The first time I was 13, and I was getting into trouble with gangs and things like that. And I was really grating with my family because they didn't want that. They were attempting to have a prominent name in their community, and I was doing things that would potentially harm our family. So there was big opposition to my family, and then when I would go out into the world, I would have big opposition and high stress in the teen world with these shady characters. And so it was very lonely and depressing when I was young. So I hit rock bottom one time, and I remember being in the bathroom one time because I got into a fight with my family members, and I contemplated suicide. But I looked in the mirror, and I also imagined all the things that would happen when I was dead. I started to think about who's going to bury me. If I cut myself here, who's going to bury me? If I do things like that, I mean, it's really, really morbid stuff. Of course, I was a teen, so, thinking like that is common amongst teens. And I want any teens watching this to know that life is very, very hard for a lot of people. Life can be easy for a select few of people. Don't cut your life short because it's hard. Everything in life is a cycle. And even if you don't believe in God, you can still see that things are in order and there is a cycle to things. The sun rises every morning, and it sets every morning. There are seasons to the year. There's summer, there's fall, there's winter, and there's spring. Every year, it's the same. You go through that cycle. The time is a cycle. Everything is a cycle. So if you're going through a hard time right now and you cut yourself down, boy, are you going to miss out on that good time. And so artists like Chester really are not thinking about themselves. Are not thinking about other people, I should say. They are thinking about themselves too much. They're not thinking about other people when they do things like that. Because I'm a fan of Linkin Park, and I really enjoy their music. Some of their political views, many of the musicians and artists, I absolutely disagree with. They're very communist, and part of the reason why they're successful in music and in entertainment is because they have a hard life. It makes them a lot more creative. When people are happy, they're not as creative. They don't think. People are happy and they're content and they don't go out and make art. I found that some of the best artists are the troubled souls out there. And it's unfortunate because it's easy to fall in love with those kinds of people because in a lot of ways you identify with them. They'll express things in ways that maybe you can't, but you're going through the same problems or you're experiencing the same difficulty at the time, and it just expresses your situation perfectly. And unfortunately, by their selfishness, they're not really thinking about the people that love them. And that's the experience that I had when I was contemplating suicide as a teen. I started to think about the people who love me. I know I disagreed with my family at the time, but I realized that if I had committed suicide, somebody else would have to bury me, or at least remove me if they didn't care. But I knew my family cared, even though I was always angry at them when I was younger. I knew they cared enough, and that if I cut myself down here, they will have to clean it up, they will have to bury me, they will have to pay for all of the expense, they will have to go through the emotional struggles of explaining to everybody what went wrong and what was good about me, and trying to remember all these things and trying to get through the confusion. There is such a cost to taking your own life. It is unbelievable. And so for Chester to do something like that, and I'm not just blaming Chester, all the other musicians and all the other people that commit suicide or contemplate suicide, it is such a pain. Because I can tell you personally, if I were talking to Chester, you actually got me through the hard times. You got me through my hard times. And to me, you were an example to me of how you can take the lemons in life and make lemonade. And then to see you cut yourself down, I can only imagine a child watching you. They may even contemplate doing the same thing because of you. It was because of you that I got through the hard times. And then you go and cut yourself down is an absolute disappointment to me. And it really tarnishes your character, because here you made these beautiful songs about feeling numb from people who don't respect you and don't treat you as an equal or as a human being in society. And, people crawling through your skin and really creating disillusion in your life. And at this moment in my life, I can't talk about it, but I have someone that I thought was close to me who is actually causing extreme trouble to me. But I'm at a point in my life where I am secure in who I am. I am very faithful in God, and I do believe that this evil will lose. They know who they are, and we'll cover more about that later when the dust settles. But you cannot let the hardness of life harden your heart and cut you down. This is why I absolutely love Christianity. Absolutely love it, because it tells you you are not alone, even if you physically feel like you are. Spiritually, you are not alone. God does not ever leave you alone. And if you don't know God, then of course you will feel alone. So as an atheist and a communist, if you have those kinds of philosophies where only material matters and you have no spirit and you don't believe in God, man, I'd pity you if you come to a hard situation, because there's no way you'll get through. I know I will get through hard times because now I know God, and I know God is there. And even in my sin, I know God is there. It's only till the end. If you cut yourself down, that's another issue. You cut yourself down, you don't know where you're going. If you're not ready to go to the other side, meaning you've lived a hard life and you don't feel sorry for it, and you cut yourself down, you're heading someplace no good, at least through my religion perspective, and I think through the main religion's perspectives, because even Islam and Judaism believes in the same, that there is a heaven, that there is a paradise with God. And if you're not ready to go there, you will go with the devil. The devil is common in all three religions as well. So, some of these other religions I can't speak for, but, and at least in some of the philosophical pseudo-religions like Buddhism, there is a nirvana or a good place you can go to. But if you're not in that right place, they have that karma belief that your life will cycle and you'll be reborn as a fly. So even though they may not believe in a passing to a spiritual realm, they believe in a passing that brings you back full circle to this realm where you may be miserable. And in some ways, I kind of think that is what hell is. Hell is being on earth, where, it's a kind of weird philosophy. A lot of Christians won't believe in it. But the way I kind of see it is, maybe God sends us back to earth when we're not ready to go to heaven. And so if you hate this place and you cut yourself down, the way I see it is you'll just be reborn here the same way to re-go through the test and trial on earth before you're ready to go to heaven. Now, that may be counter to Christianity, but that's just a philosophy way of thinking about it, the way I look at it. So if you really don't like this planet, you don't like the world and the way it's going, it's very difficult because you can do everything perfectly, but other people can screw it up for you. And you can a lot of the times use that as an excuse for why you can't succeed. And I would never use that as an excuse for why I can't succeed, because I know I have a clear vision of what I want to do. And if someone comes in opposition and they try to create problems, like right now the Democrats, I see creating a big problem in our country when President Trump is trying everything he can do to make our place a better place. Now, this is leading into politics, but I believe that opposition should never prevent you from being successful. They may succeed in the short term. They may throw some wrenches in the gears, but there is a harmony to life that God has created, and God is peaceful. When we read, there are stories that we read about the devil asking for more power to tear down our church, and God is so peaceful and all-knowing and all-powerful that he's very willing to even give the devil all the power he wants. How much power do you need, says God when the devil approaches his throne. How much power do you need? I'll give it to you. And he gives it to the devil, and still there's no success, because power cannot be wielded appropriately without wisdom, and wisdom must come from God. Can't be manly wisdom, because man doesn't see properly. Man only believes in what man can see. And this is where religion comes in. Religion helps man to see what cannot be seen. It is belief in what cannot be seen. And God cannot be seen. And God is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, and all-patient, and loves you unconditionally. However, in the end, it is up to you to decide. And now this leads me into the second topic, which to me is phenomenal. We witnessed, now it's Saturday morning for me, but Friday, there was a press conference that the mayor of Minneapolis tried to hold, and it was shut down by a protest. And it's the kind of protest that typically I would be against if I knew that it was a primarily Antifa liberal agenda type, but I didn't get a total sense that that's what it was. There were some communist fists up in the sky, but to me it was a very American thing to do. And I actually support it in a way. They went in and the Mayor Hodges tried to have a press conference of the resignation of the police chief of Minneapolis. And she was announcing she was going to appoint a new police chief. And the people came in and shut her down. Boy, did they shut her down. She was trying to say, I understand. The politicians are always so understanding. It's to the point where she's not a Muslim, but she was wearing a hijab to meet with Somalis over this Somali police officer. Let me go into this whole story, because initially I heard this story and I just kind of was like, all right, whatever. Some police officer went nuts and ended up shooting the person who called him. All right, so the way the story starts is there's this lady who comes from Sydney, Australia, to marry her fiance. She takes her fiance's last name of Damond, but she's not married to him yet. And she's to be married to him soon. But she hears something outside in an alley. It sounds like a rape is occurring. She hears screaming and probably some rustling and smacking. And so she calls the police. The police respond. This is the first mistake she made. She went outside to the police. I never recommend that. When you call police on a disturbance, you wait for the police to come to you. Her first mistake, she went outside. She approaches the police car. And apparently they said there was a bang, and the Somali national who became a police officer here, they say he's Muslim. I don't know if Muslim has anything to do with it. I think he was a little bit jumpy. Pulled his gun and shot her, mistaking her for the source of the boom or the sound or whatever they heard. And a whole big mess happened. Then the second thing is they didn't have any of their body cameras on. No audio, no video. That is a no-no. If you're a police officer, first of all, I don't like body cameras for police officers because at first, because I thought that it would be a problem. But the reality of it is there are some bad eggs in the law enforcement industry and or in law enforcement, and they I got distracted because I got a text there. And they need to really be watched over. So unfortunately, the good cops, it's always the good people who suffer because of the bad people. But unfortunately, all police should have a camera there. And there may be times that good cops make bad decisions and they get caught on the cameras, but because of the way and the nature of the law enforcement lifestyle and profession, they need to have body cameras on them. And it actually benefits them because a lot of the criminals, people like to video today. And to me, it's ridiculous because once the police have body cameras on, it actually defends the police as well. So it can be, the people cry for body cameras, but they need to really think about what those are too. So to me, the body camera is an equalizer. It's a double-edged sword in many ways. It can cut you, but it can also help you if you know how to wield it, as with any weapon. So to me, internet, video cameras, anything like that are double-edged swords. But they need to be there. I love to go, when I go shopping, I go to Stater Brothers. I don't know, as far as I know, Stater Brothers is primarily in California, and I don't know if it's expanded out because I haven't done any studies on Stater Brothers. But I love Stater Brothers shopping networks. They have great shopping markets here in California. In the heartland, and it's where they started. Recently, they lost one of their CEOs, and founding brothers. But they have cameras outside of their buildings, and I hate cameras because I believe that Big Brother and hackers and evil people can use cameras to invade your privacy and to track you unnecessarily and abuse you. But however, they can also be used for security and surveillance for your benefit. So whenever I go shopping at Stater Brothers, I make sure I park in front of their cameras. And there's one place near where I used to live. I used to live in Lyell Creek, California, which is up in the mountains in San Bernardino County. And when you get down to the bottom of the mountains, there's a city called Fontana there. They have a Stater Brothers there that I absolutely love. Open till midnight. Great advertisement. Free advertisement for Stater Brothers. But the nature of that shopping center is there's a blind spot from the camera. The Stater Brothers kind of sticks out. And then when you get to the side of the Stater Brothers, it curves in. And there used to be a Blockbuster Video tucked back there. There was a car that parked in the corner there in the blind spot of the camera. And somebody knew that. They broke into the car and, stole things from the vehicle. So the cameras were an advantage. Now, I went on a tangent, but coming back to the police, I believe body cameras are now a necessity, and I've changed my role on it. I still think they can have potential to be dangerous, but as long as we pay attention to body cameras, they can be used appropriately. And as long as we're educated about it, they can be used appropriately. But the police didn't have their body cameras on. They didn't have any audio on. And the only audio was on the radios and of the lady calling for the police to respond, and unfortunately she got shot. And so we don't have any body cam footage of how she got shot. Also in Minneapolis, we all know the famous Philando Castile incident where he had a concealed carry permit, and police officers responded. They asked him to show his permit, and for some reason one of the officers decided to shoot him. And unfortunately, from the footage that we're able to see, we can't really tell what happened. And unfortunately, I kind of feel like it was an unjustified shooting from my perspective. And I'm a conservative and I support law enforcement, but it didn't look good from the perspective I saw. I'm all for concealed carry as well. So Philando Castile had a legitimate concealed carry permit. And although he's had a criminal past, I think my belief is that he wasn't really trying to shoot the officer, but the officer killed him. So Minneapolis has had many problems. So from my perspective, the police have made a big mistake too. So the woman made a mistake going out to meet the police. The police made a big mistake by not having their body cams on. The overall police agency made a huge mistake because they took too much time responding and investigating the situation. They didn't even really communicate with the community very well about it. And apparently they have an inconsistent body camera policy there. So these protesters going in, though there may be communists mixed in there, and there may be Black Lives Matter mixed in there, both groups that I don't agree with, the way they went about it is the way America is. America is, if your representatives are not doing their jobs to represent you, and you are a taxpayer, you have every right to shut them down, and the government may try to be high-handed and lock you out of the chambers, which it appears they tried to do. That is not just. Everyone has a right to be heard and to see and to be represented and to see your representative and to be accountable and to have account for your representatives. So when the government tries to lock you out of public service announcement meetings, I absolutely support their breaking into the building, shouting out the mayor, telling her to leave, that they're taking over, but to a point. When it becomes a point where they say, now we are the mayor and we are going to run things, I don't like that either. That's very communist, because that then is you're only representing your own views and you don't necessarily represent the entire community in that view. And so the best way is, if you overthrow the government on those terms, you must still follow the Constitution and the laws of the land, in which they did it peacefully. I mean, they removed her peacefully. They came in, they shouted and everything, but there was no violence in my view. They can shout all they want with bullhorns, and I'm all for it. That's protest. That's a real protest. What happened in Minneapolis? Absolutely a real protest. And when the government runs out like that, great. I support that. Taking over the government and then running it the way you want, not constitutional, not democratic. That is communist, fascist type stuff, and I do not support that. So if they do that, that's where they lose my support. But if they displace the government, get them to run away and step down, and then they hold legitimate elections where everybody can be represented, then I'm all for it. That's where I come in and I support it. And it must follow their constitution, the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of their state, and the articles of their city. So it has to follow all those things. A lot of also mistakes that happen with the police there is up to the people. I did another video before, I think it was called Rise and Shine, where I said, you the people are the power in the government. It sounds like I'm following communism there, because the communists like to say power to the people, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Constitution is the power of the people, and we, the people, are the government. However, we also must follow the laws, and since we are the government, we are the reason those people who sit in government are in power, because we place the votes. So if those people in government do not do what we want them to do, we're at fault. But here's the catch with Minneapolis and with many inner cities. People do not vote. They don't vote. They feel disenfranchised because they don't vote. So they don't go to the polls. They don't cast their ballots. They don't place that check mark to put the people in power because they feel like my vote doesn't matter. Well, that's your mistake. Your mistake. I never do that. There was a period of time when I was a little bit liberal and I didn't want to vote. I think I missed one election because I was like, my vote doesn't matter. But I realized, you know what? even if it doesn't matter, I'm going to do it just in case. And Donald Trump's election has shown me that your vote does matter. And it's proved to me that even though I believe there was election fraud, that fraud still couldn't beat the nationalism that's going on in this country, that the media and the liberal leftists, or leftist liberals, I should say, because not all liberals are leftists, the leftists cannot grasp this because they're too arrogant. You try to tell them they're stupid, and that's the reason why the populists took over, because they got tired of their garbage and their stupidity. They try to find a real reason for why they didn't win. The dummies are too arrogant, even if you tell them why they didn't get reelected, to accept it, because they're so arrogant. So they're going to destroy themselves. They're going to commit political suicide. So all of this connects. Suicide, I've even done other videos about how the left is committing suicide. And so when my musicians commit suicide, I know they're leftists. I know they don't believe in God. I know they're sad, and it makes me sad that they did it, but I lose a lot of respect for them. And this is the message I'm trying to send to most people. You are the power, both in your own life and in government. You have the power to decide to make your life better, no matter what opposition and difficulty you face. If you commit suicide, it's over. You have no more chance. Same with the government. If you stop voting, you're basically committing political suicide. If you stop voting for the people because you feel disenfranchised, you generate the very thing that you don't want. You allow the people who do vote, who may not represent you, to get that person into power. And so a lot of the times you'll have the wealthy white people. I'm not against wealthy white people, but a lot of times wealthy white people will vote people into office because they never miss a vote. But the lower class, considered lower class, individuals who don't make as much money, they're impoverished, they live in the inner cities, they feel disenfranchised, so they don't vote. They're at the mercy of those white wealthy people, and it becomes racism to them because they feel like the whites are against them. No, that's not the case. The white people are going to vote for their best interest because that's their life. They have money. They want to preserve it. They want to make sure that people don't come in and take advantage of them. They don't want people begging for money because they feel like they worked for it. And they don't want people stealing from them. So, of course, a lot of the inner city, that's where the source of those things come from. You have a lot of the criminality comes from lower level inner cities where the people don't have money and they're desperate and they steal. And a lot of people haven't been raised properly. They have no parents. And so they, in desperation and from lack of instruction, resort to those kinds of lifestyles. I have a friend who, he became a Christian, but initially he was a burglar. He would break into people's homes. He gave a testimony at one of Christian gatherings I went to. And he said God changed his life because he knew no better. His parents weren't there. His dad wasn't there. His mom was only interested in men and sleeping with multiple men. So he had no good instruction from parents. And he had to figure out life on his own. So to him, his idea of going to work every morning was, who should I rob today? What house should I break into? I'm going to go to lunch. That's my normal lunch. So that's his idea of what's right. And that's not right. At some point, we as a people, we need to take responsibility for ourselves and stop blaming. Blaming is the biggest problem we have in this country. It's pointing the finger at the other guy. And that's not going to change anything. That's not going to make anything any better. And then to blame the other guy and then to turn the knife on yourself is even worse. And I just realized that I didn't even cover OJ. Maybe I'll get into that next. But the Minneapolis thing, let me finish that. That government should be taken out. Because the way I see it, they are not doing the people any benefit. And the police are not doing the people any benefit. And if the people make a movement against the government and throw them out when they didn't vote, you are not in the right either because you didn't vote. You deserve what you got because you did not take part in this democracy, this constitutional republic that you were so gifted to be born in. that you were planted in fertile ground, but because there were weeds around you, you allowed the weeds to grow because you didn't feel like your vote mattered. And so they choked you. You're planted in fertile ground in America. Don't destroy the fertile ground because of the weeds. Remove the weeds and grow where you're planted. Bloom where you're planted. Shouldn't matter who's there. But you need to start educating yourself about the beautiful republic you have. There are very few places like the United States of America that you are blessed to live in. The United States of America is a constitutional republic, and we need to drain the swamp. The swamp, sometimes people support the swamp creatures because the swamp creatures come dressed in light. They promise you everything, but the reality of it is they cannot promise you anything. It's got to come from you. They cannot give you dollars you did not earn. And if they do, you will pay for it later. And this is what our economy is showing. We are booming because people are getting credit out of control. They are taking loans that they cannot afford. You don't work hard enough to pay that loan. So if you don't work hard to pay that loan, you shouldn't buy that thing with somebody else's money. You have to produce that money in order to buy it. So you've got money being doubled that shouldn't be there. And if you don't grasp that concept, there's a world of hurt that's coming to us. So take responsibility, Americans. Start taking responsibility for yourself and stop blaming. My current situation that I'm experiencing is someone is blaming me for something that I did not do. And it's trouble. It's trouble for them. It's been trouble in the short term for me, but it's going to be trouble for them because they're not taking responsibility, and then they're going on social media and bad-mouthing me. If you don't know what's going on, you'll find out when it's over. If you do know what's going on, but it's being told from the other side and you've sided with them without hearing my side, you're in trouble too, because I won't deal with that. If you're unfaithful to me, you're done in my life. I want to have nothing to do with you. You don't go in my life. Same thing with the government. If you're a government that I voted for and you don't follow what I want as a taxpayer and as a voter, you are done. So that's why I support the American way of toppling a government and then democratically electing a new form to represent you, but participate in that election. Now, on to OJ. I'm sorry, folks, he did it. If you're rejoicing that he's out, you're part of the problem again. This goes back to you're part of the problem. Because if you can't see from all the evidence, if you're making it a racial thing because he's black and he's free, big mistake. If someone's a murderer, they're a murderer. Skin color matters not. If they're a murderer, the evidence is he's a murderer. And he had an excellent lawyer, Johnny Cochran, who, as a lawyer, I really admire. I mean, he did an excellent job in winning and getting OJ out just from one line. If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit. I'll never forget that, watching that. And, of course, everybody knows that leather shrinks after it's been wet and it dries. And OJ's a big man, and the moment he puts the gloves on, they don't fit because blood is wet. And once that wetness dries up, the leather shrinks and the gloves don't fit. So the people in the jury allowed a murderer to go free. And unfortunately, he got caught for a civil action and still had to go to jail. And he got caught for some other thing in Las Vegas where he kicked in doors and stuff. So in the end, those kinds of people still get caught because they are what they are. And they may get away from trouble in the short term, but in the long term, because of who they are, their character or lack thereof, they end up where they need to be. And so, but OJ is getting out. And the best thing he can do for society and himself is to stay out of trouble. And hopefully he'll do that. Hopefully he's been in jail long enough to know that it's not a place he wants to be. He's a slick charmer, talker, but he's a strong guy. And when you look at the evidence, I mean, they're trying to blame his son for killing. They're trying to say that that's an alternative potential murderer, but no way. When I see the evidence of the murder, I posted it on Facebook. When I see the evidence of the murder scene, I mean, it was a strong guy who did it, and it was a crime of passion, you can tell. He misunderstood the situation. Poor Ron Goldman was merely returning something to Nicole, and unfortunately, he was mistaken as a lover, and his throat, boy, the way his throat was slashed, if you see images of it, I mean, this wasn't your typical slash. I've seen a lot of slashes. I've been in medical. I've also been in martial arts, dealing with knives, and you'll see slits that go there. But this thing cut halfway, very nearly decapitated the guy. It is very brutal, and her face is nearly gone. It's been bashed from here to here and cut out from here to here. That is a crime of passion, because no criminal would do something at that level unless it was a crime of passion. So I'm not happy that the juice is loose, and I say the juice is loose, but he should be in a noose. And unfortunately, that's taken place. So that's covered 3 topics. I only wanted to cover 2, but it reminded me that one is important enough to cover. And really, the whole message is that don't commit suicide. Don't cut yourself short, and take responsibility where it's due, but don't take so much responsibility that you feel like the only way to justify or to find justice or peace is to end your life. Ending your own life is never the answer. And if I can save somebody's life just from this message, then I am absolutely happy about that. And maybe it may be my own, because I don't know. I might get into that rut sometime in the future. And I don't think so, because I really, the way I view it, that's never going to be a possibility again. But you never know. Mental states are fragile. People are fragile, and you can become very disenfranchised and very disappointed and depressed about things in life, but never ever take it to that regard. You can't unscramble eggs, so don't scramble yourself. Get your head right. If you're going to try to end your life, you need to talk to somebody rational. You're not rational right now. Get some help. There are support groups for that. If you need some help, message me at Facebook or on Instagram, but do not resort to that kind of end. It's just very tragic. And to me, life is like a storm. You'll go through the stormy times, but when those clouds clear, the sun shines so bright. You may have the sun shining a lot of the time in your area, but when a cloud comes through and it leaves, you'll see the sun in a way that you've never seen it before. So don't cut yourself down in the storm. Let that sun shine, because it's so sweet. It is so amazing when that sun does shine. Don't cut yourself down. All right. You guys have a good evening. Have a good day. If I do another video, you'll see it on Sunday. If I don't, I'll see you next week. But God be with you always.